Hello there my music lovers, I'm George from audiophile-heaven and today we are having a look at a $350 headphone. This is the Verum 1 Mark II. This is a planar magnetic headphone. This is a very heavy headphone and a very well built one. So let's dig right into it. This is one of the very few headphones that doesn't really come with a package, so there is no unboxing to talk of. You basically receive the headphones and the cables in a pretty basic cardboard box. This is actually a cardboard box that I received with a ton of stamps on it. So they are made by hand, sent by hand, assembled by hand, everything is created by hand. And they are made in Ukraine actually. They have only one person working on them as far as I know, and the headphone is a true beauty. They are made to be very resilient. They pretty much look like a tank. This is how well built they are. So as far as I understand it and as far as I learned from the website, they are using titanium, actual leather, actual metal. The cable is of the highest quality and they actually improved a lot on the Verum 1 Mark II from the Mark I, which I also reviewed in video and in writing on audiophile-heaven. You can expect a full written review on the Verum 1 Mark II, and I will tell you, this headphone really made me happy in so many ways. So let's start with the actual review. Putting the Verum 1 on my head, I can notice that they are quite heavy actually. They are also very comfortable. The headband does a very good job at distributing the weight, but when you push on them, you can hear a very loud driver flex kind of. It's a very slow kind of driver flex, so they don't really have a lot of ventilation between the driver and the actual cage of the driver, the actual ear cup. And pushing on both, you can hear poof, poof. So there is some driver flex on the Verum 1. The cables are much improved from the original. The original had a very thin and frail looking cable, while this one has a beautiful cable. The space between the headphone connectors and the Y split is actually quite small, so they look a bit like a little tie. They are not comfortable to be worn like this because they are quite heavy and they are quite large too, so you can see this is not comfortable at all. On the other hand, the headphone itself sounds beautiful. This is a headphone that I really fell in love with after listening to it for a longer time. You need to let them burn in. The creator also recommends some burn-in and I recommend that too. They changed the sonic characteristics quite a bit after a few hours, just a few hours. Give them like 10 hours. If you don't like them, after 10 hours just send them back or whatever you can do with them. In fact, only in Romania I know at least 10 people who own a pair of those, and that is insane, that is crazy. I barely know as many people owning Audes or owning the Harmonic Dyne Zeus. I don't really know as many people owning the Harmonic Dyne Zeus, and the Harmonic Dyne Zeus, I actually like that a bit more before finding the second version of the Verum 1. So the Verum 1 is very popular, and I mean extremely popular. And as far as I know, the whole being assembled by hand thing helps reduce cost quite a bit instead of increasing them. Let's do a bit of a recap. Let's compare the Verum 1 with the original. So this is the Mark II. The first thing you'll notice is that it doesn't really have those cat ears anymore. The original went like this, whoop, 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 like a little M letter on your head. The original was very comfortable actually. That M letter did a very good job of being comfortable, but in actual practice it looked kind of funny and you couldn't really wear it outside. You wouldn't go wearing it outdoors, and that was a big thing for the original. The Verum 1 Mark II can totally be worn outdoors. You will feel good with them. They look stylish. I have the carbon version here, and they are very comfortable besides the weight and the driver flex. As you can see, they can swivel in every single direction. You can adjust the size from this mechanism. It is a very secure mechanism, so once you adjusted them to a size, they will stay like that. And I like that about the Verum 1. It is a very secure kind of headphone. They have the little V here. I don't know what Verum comes from, and they write it as Verum 1 with an alphanumerical number. It's not an O-N-E, it is a 1, the 1 character. Okay, so compared to the original, the Mark II is actually much easier to pair with sources. I suspect that they actually increased the overall impedance because I know for a reason the original had an extremely low impedance. This one is much harder to drive. My smartphone, the Xiaomi Poco F2 Pro, can barely drive them, and I mean barely drive the Verum 1 Mark II. They are actually harder to drive than the Sigma Phoenix, which is $250, and they are inline or even harder to drive than the Harmonic Dyne Zeus, so pretty hard to drive this time around. This eliminated many of the issues because I know a ton of people purchased the first version, including me, and after opening it and after trying to use the original version, I noticed that when the song hit harder, I would hear no sound. So it will go like this, whoop, and then silence. And I contacted the creator of the Verum 1 and asked him, why do they do this? And he was kind of funny about it. He told me that I don't know what I'm doing. And I took no offense. I generally am a pretty laid back guy and I don't really take offense easily. But he told me that it is possible that my source is not high quality enough and that it may be short circuiting and entering current overdrive. The original Verum 1 had an extremely low impedance. With smartphones and sources that were not ready to take such a small impedance, the original put them in a short circuit kind of state, so it was not such a safe headphone. This one, the Verum 1 Mark II, doesn't really have this issue. I could max out the volume on my smartphone and they were still singing. They had a much lower volume than the Verum 1 Mark I, and driving them with something like the Lotto Post 6000 revealed a beautiful sound. They scale a lot with the source. They are a very scaly kind of headphone, and this means that the driver has a ton of potential. You should invest in a very good source if you are going for the Verum 1 Mark II. I found funny the thing that the original creator of the Verum 1 actually responded to my mails, and we figured that we actually have a pretty similar listening palette with a ton of metal, including black metal and Romanian metal. You should try some of those songs that he recommended. Actually, he told me that he tested this and I also tested them, and one of the first tests I did to the Verum 1 Mark II was with a song named I Drink Your Blood, and it was kind of funny. I also listened to a ton of metal. If you are watching this video, you probably listen to at least a bit of metal. And even if you are not, the Verum 1 is excellent because the Mark I was actually most appreciated by someone who mainly enjoys classical and jazz, the favorite of people who listen to jazz, and the main reason is the sound. The Mark II is slightly different than the first, so I'll be describing the Mark II from now forward. You can check the video for the Verum 1 Mark I and you can check the full written review, so it is time for the Mark II. The Mark II is a very well balanced headphone. They have a thick, full-bodied bass. It is beautiful, it is rounded, it is both deep, rumbly, thumpy, and has a beautiful slum. It is the most beautiful bass I've seen in $350. I actually like their bass a bit more than the bass of the Harmonic Dyne Zeus. I find this bass to be more satisfying. They really appeal to me as a bass head, and I really love this bass. It is boom, boom, deep, natural kind of boom, like live kind of boom. The next thing is the mid-range. The mid-range is detailed, extremely clear, and slightly analytical. This is very different. The original was very smooth, very lean, and very laid back. Well, the Verum 1 Mark II is extremely detailed, clean, clear, crisp, very good textures, a very wide soundstage, beautiful instrument placement. They are incredibly good with placement and with imaging. The imaging is so good. You have so much instrument separation that you can hear many instruments even in relatively simple songs. So even listening to Linkin Park reveals a ton of detail with the Verum 1 Mark II, and I really appreciated that. They are able to bear screams, they are able to bear blasts, they are able to bear EDM, dubstep, they are able to bear metal. They have a beautiful overall dynamic. They have a ton of dynamics, and I love that about the Verum 1 Mark II. I also enjoyed the treble, but the treble is their weak point for me. The treble is smoother, more laid back, and more relaxed. It has lower quantity than the bass and the mid-range, which means that they are very relaxing to listen to. They are not the most engaging in the treble, and at times I felt that the treble was too little for me. So if you are asking me for my personal opinion, if you are a bass head, if you don't like a ton of treble, or if you enjoy a smoother, more blended treble, and if you enjoy a ton of detail, go for Verum 1 Mark II. If you need more treble, go for Harmonic Dyne Zeus, which is the main competitor to the Verum 1 Mark II. Hi-Fi Mendeva was a competitor and it was pretty good, but the Verum 1 Mark II actually beats the Hi-Fi Mendeva in terms of overall resolution, clarity, and detail. Hi-Fi Mendeva is still excellent for its soundstage. It it has the largest soundstage of the headphones in this price range, but Verum 1 Mark II is better balanced. It has a better body, more natural lash presentation to mid-range, a slightly colder mid-range actually, and that plays well for detail and emotion. The Verum 1 Mark II works equally well for male and female voices. It works well for Vocaloid, for J-pop, for J-rock, for anime music, which tends to be quite bright. And thanks to their smoother and more laid-back treble, they work excellently for aggressive music too. So metal, post-hardcore, deathcore, technical death, greencore, yeah, all of those things sound beautiful with the Verum 1 Mark II. So here's the thing, I'm pretty curious about how do you feel about the Verum 1 Mark II? Do you like this type of metal plate on the ear cup? Do you feel that they look a bit heavy or would you rather invest in an Audeze headphone? The main thing is that the Audeze LCD2C is more dry. The Verum 1 Mark II is more liquid, more fluid, and that helps a ton of musicality, especially if you are listening to a ton of rock or music with solos or music with juicy guitars. The Verum 1 Mark II presents them more naturally. The Audeze LCD2C is kinda more analytical, more dry at the same time, so they tend to be a bit choppy, if that makes sense. The Verum 1 Mark II presents music more freely, things tend to blend better together, and while they have an excellent separation, they don't really cut instruments away from each other. So piano can be beautifully blended with drums and with guitars, while you can hear a ton of detail when you are listening to jazz. You can hear the room size. You don't really have to wonder what was the room size for those, because the Verum 1 Mark II actually has a larger overall soundstage than the LCD2C, while the LCD2C is more focused. The LCD2C is more forward, it pushes more music into you, while the Verum 1 Mark II is not that forward actually. The mid-range, despite not being recessed, is not quite forward. You would actually call this natural. They are pretty natural in their overall mid-range and bass presentation. The treble, as I said, smooth. So if you need more treble, harmonic Dynzus, Hi-Fi Mendeva, Hi-Fi Sundara, there are options. Those are not for you if you like a brighter signature. Those are for you if you like a smoother, warmer, more laid-back signature. As laid back as this video has been, I hope you've been enjoying it. I hope you'll consider subscribing to audiophile-heaven. Also leave a like on this video if you enjoyed the video. I hope you have the loveliest of weeks in there. I hope we will see each other really soon. And it is time to tell you bye bye.